This makes me happy.
Yes, that's the one, baby. I'm glad I went out of my way to do this. Ah! Welcome back to the channel, guys. This is the beginning of our 3D printed seat. So last episode we made a disaster of a seat. And granted, we don't make a disaster out of this one. We're gonna finish this seat this episode. But also we're gonna do the brakes and the clutch. And we're gonna do the dash as well. And basically ready to drive. A little bit of work in the front end. It's gonna be really close. So stay tuned. We got a lot of fun stuff coming. All right, here is why I'm so fixated on this seat. So currently, our old seat had a more laid back position, but after I put this firewall in, it moved my seating position slightly more forward, which meant I had to sit a little more upright, which I was okay with. And honestly, the more upright position is a little bit better. But if we go too upright, then the distance between this bar up here and this bar right here, my head intersects it, which you can't have, so I have to lay down a little bit more. The problem with laying down a little bit more is that now my knees are in a more up position. So the more upright I am, you can see that my knees are lower compared to this bar. As I go down further, my knees come up. So if I move the pedals further, my knees go down again. So moving the pedal position is key, but there's one thing that I should do that I've been avoid doing the whole time, and that this bar right here, wherever it is down here, this one right here that the pedals sit on is just a little bit too high. So I should cut this bar out, and I should build another set of bars that go from here to the front to lower our pedals even just an inch or two to give us some more room on this bar right here. This is another one of those cases where doing it in CAD first would have been an advantage because I could have modeled myself, put myself in there, and made sure that my knees don't hit this bar. Shifter. I don't have a lot of room for a shifter, man. Gotta write it down. It's just a whiteboard marker, but the goal is permanent. So the first thing that we should do to mentally help me move forward with this thing is fix our seating position. In order to fix our seating position, we're gonna have to cut out these bottom bars down here. No big deal, we'll make new bars that go on the bottom. We're going to increase our feet capacity space in the cockpit, this way a little bit more. Lower the pedals down a little bit, gives us a bit more room to modify the steering, and that'll allow us to lower that seat back just a little bit more, move my head down a little bit farther, and because my head weighs so much because my brain's so big, it'll reduce the center of gravity down just a little bit more. One step forward, then a couple steps back, then a couple steps forward, and then a couple more steps back. Joy. Let's do this. Just redoing the whole thing again. No big deal. Oh yeah, like Deadpool now. I'm a frickin' Flintstone car now. Kyle powered. I didn't account for spring back, but close to 45. Follow it up by busting out the Rogue Fab Notcher 2. Both of our new bars are in place. Gotta weld them up. Ultimately gonna drop this bar probably about 1.5 inches in the front half over here, which will give us obviously 1.5 inches up here. That's just how math works. Oh boy, I'm excited for this one. You guys know I do not take sponsorships often, so this is huge. Today's video is sponsored by Revopoint, specifically their Pop 3 Plus 3D scanner. I really don't need to tell you guys how valuable this is going to be in our specific application and how excited I am to use this, but let's jump into it. Included with your scanner is this cool turntable and all new glass calibration board. We also have the mobile kit, so you aren't tethered to a computer. You can just use your smartphone. And with just 10 minutes of tutorial videos, we're gonna scan my wife's head. Despite her head being a moving object in space, and I'm freehanding the scanner, the 9-axis IMU and the intelligent algorithms ensure a constant and reliable scan. Once your scan is done, you can either edit the object on your phone or from a PC. And with the Revopoint software being so user-friendly, you can fix holes and smooth objects very easily with their tools. Now we can 3D print the head, and you can see just how much detail this powerful 3D scanner can capture. With accuracy up to 0.08 millimeters and single frame precision up to 0.04 millimeters. It's actually the perfect scanner at an amazing price point, and it would be a great addition to any shop, hobbyist, enthusiast. So thank you to Revopoint for sending us this 3D scanner. We will be using it lots in the shop. This isn't going to be the last time you see it, and I'm looking forward to doing more with them. If you guys are interested in the scanner, all the links will be down below. All right, now that we can retest this, the foot position, I've already tested it, is actually way better. But this is the seating position I need to be in. But in order to get the position for the pedals, we need to finish the seat first. And in order to finish the seat first, I've got to print it. And I've been doing some printing lately. This was test print number 1. Now, if you guys have ever used a program like Fusion 360, you know that you can do something but not well, and then it takes a while to learn how to do it well. So I've actually spent the last 2 days on Fusion 360 instead of building this to like hone my skills and finally design and build a seat. This is the seat that I've built. Now, I've sat in the cart, I've taken a lot of measurements. This seems to be the best seat that I can make dimensionally for the space that we have, and it should work really good. So I'm gonna print this seat out. It's gonna take me a few days for sure. So until we have the seat printed out and mounted, I can't really put the pedal position in, and I can't really move the steering rack until we figure out where the seat goes. So it's time to move on from what we're doing, but I do feel like the days that I've spent in Fusion 360, either editing meshes or building my own Fusion 360 parts, has been, I don't know, infinitely valuable. Because we can take that skill and we can move it into our next projects. That's really what it's all about. It's just about progressing. I thought of it initially as a waste of a day because I sat in front of the computer screen for, 10 or 12 hours, just learning a skill. And I thought it was a waste until I really thought back on it, and I was like, man, that's really gonna progress us further down the line. So between having that 3D scanner and honing my skills in Fusion 360, we're gonna have some next level stuff in here. Here is a bunch of pieces from our new seat. I printed it 8 mil thick, and I don't know how I'm gonna put it all together yet, but this masterpiece. Now, yes, I have watched Beas for Build. I know you can fuse plastic together. I'm just gonna try and use a bit of super glue, glue these first 5 pieces together. I'm actually printing one side of the seat first because if it doesn't make sense to print the bottom part of the seat because you can't test it with half the seat, the bottom half of the seat, but you can test half a seat. So you can build one half of the seat, put it against your ass, see if you like it. That came out really wrong. I'm just gonna start fusing things together. I got this stuff on my fingers once. And it burns, so don't do that. And now technically, because it's the same shape on the inside as it is the outside, if the inside is a little bit too tight, we can mold the outside of the seat and it'll technically be 8 mil bigger on both sides. You're not here for technicalities though. See you in a bit. This is gonna sound really funny, but all I did, oh, it's still on actually, was I took this soldering iron. I don't ever solder wires anymore, I only crimp wires, so I really don't have a use for this. So all I did was take the soldering iron, a little piece of filament here, and I just kind of I literally just welded it together. And I only stitch welded it together, but look at this, I'm holding it on the edge right here. Anyways, now because I'm building my own parts and I'm not using an internet sourced part, I built it off of the dimensions of the chassis, so it should technically fit in the chassis. The only thing I don't know is if it fits my little butt. So the old seat here versus the new style seat, you can see the refinement. The whole thing on this one is 8 mil thick. This one, I don't even know. It's like half an inch thick up here, and then it's curved, and then half an inch down there. So this one's gonna be, it's gonna be better. It's gonna be better, man. All the pieces for the second half of the seat. Yep, I do watch B is for Build. So I know Chris has been doing this with his Lambo project. And Chris, if you're watching me, I would love to come to your place, help you for a week or something. Maybe you can teach me a few things about 3D printing and stuff, and I can help you do some stuff. I can fabricate, I can weld. Just keep it in mind, buddy. Now let's assemble the second half of the seat. Whoa, almost seated. Hold on. You guys are telling me that I can just start laying dimes on plastic right now? Like you can literally make it look like a weld to the point that I'm looking for my pedal to start welding. It's crazy. I love this. I did it! We were left with a little bit of a gap at the top here and a little bit of gap at the bottom here. I'm gonna say that it's because we printed it in 18 pieces. My 3D printer is only a 300mm circle instead of a 300mm cube, so you do have to cut things up a little bit smaller because you can fit more in a cube than you can in a circle. So we will be looking at upgrading our 3D printer at some point, but I think we can put this in here, see if it works. In fact, it fits in there quite well. With the next question being, I guess, do I fit in there? Oh my God. I could use, like these could be a little bit less big on the side or a little bit lower so they wrap around my body. It's good enough for now. Now everyone said that I should just sit in the cart and then do a puller seat around me. The thing is I wanted a seat close to what I wanted and then pour inside that. So this is what this shell is essentially. Now we should be able to put that bag in here, pour a seat, and then make that. Now that we have an actual dimension that we like working with. Now that we have the most of the seat in here, we can finally start moving on. Now that we have like basically our seat positioning, we can move on. I spent way too much time on this seat that I didn't want to spend between Fusion 360, 3D printing, and then tearing apart the front end and having to wait on that for the seat. We should probably continue what we were doing. So moving on, we're gonna start working on the pedal placement. Cause tonight is the night when two become one. Spot for our pedals.
This is what you waited for, people ready to ride.
Now this plate might not seem significant, but it's twice as thick as the old plate. The old plate was only 1/8, this is 1/4 inch, and there was definitely a little bit of flex in the old plate when you push the brake pedal. So this is just gonna help eliminate all the flex in there. So honestly, it's a great addition to the project. Should have put the plate the other way. I'm the literal definition of measure once, fuck it up twice. Now I actually aligned the setup so that the brake pedal is directly down the middle of the chassis, which gives us equal space from the clutch and the gas pedal. So it does look a little bit offset on the plate down at the bottom. But once you stack everything together, the brake pedal is directly in the middle. Hey, look at that. The assembly's like more done than it was last time because it wasn't even fully mounted last time. I just needed to get to that point again. When right now is that time. So we just did it. At this point, I'm basically trying to speed run everything that we can do to go out and even test drive it. So some things that aren't fully done are gonna be okay, but brakes is a big priority here. Snow is probably like 30 days away, give or take a little bit, but it's already getting below freezing overnight. So speed running everything that we can do to make this thing drivable. Up next, we're gonna get rid of our old steering bar thing that was in the front. We're gonna get rid of this bar right here. And then we're also going to get rid of this steering rod right here, and we're gonna build off of that after. I just need to get it out of the way so that we can build the rest of our braking system. And the steering is definitely something that I wanted to come back to eventually anyways. It just didn't feel right to me. So yeah, no time like the present to cut it up. We've got some reservoirs, 3 to be exact. We're gonna mount these somewhere in the front area up there. It's been a long time coming. I usually build things without brakes, like my Trank, and I feel like brakes are pretty important, especially something that has 170 horsepower. See if it comes with all the appropriate fittings. Better not break that, I need that. All right, so when you buy a Wilwood reservoir kit, when you buy a Wilwood reservoir kit, apparently it doesn't come with the fitting that you need for the actual cylinder. And then I was like 7/16 by 20, that's a really weird thread size. And then I come to find out that it's actually like 4AN thread size. So This is the best our local hardware store could come up with, was 2 fittings. Those are gonna fit in the master cylinder thingamajiggers here. And then we're gonna mount all our cylinders up here, and then we're gonna have some brake fluid. What a pain in the dink though. What we're gonna do is we're gonna use a piece of flat bar that I've already cut, weld it to the inside in here, and then mount all of our reservoirs to that piece of flat bar, throw them on the floor, and be done with it. Now we bolt up all our reservoirs. And now our silly little fittings. Ooh, now we get to finish it off with some hose. This is how you join it up. It's a long length of hose. Hey, it's all done. Each reservoir goes to each thingamajig. And that was way more complicated than it needed to be. Next time I would prefer if just like my cylinders came with the right fittings. We did, however, ruin all the brake lines when we moved our pedal box, so we do have to rebuild some brake lines, unfortunately, and we moved some brake lines in the back when we did the rear spool. Uh-oh! Fresh Red Bull and our master Ric Flair tool. Woo! We're gonna get these brake lines done in a jiffy. He, in fact, did not finish those brake lines in a jiffy. He got distracted, marshmallow brain, squirrel brained, and did something else. But the brake lines eventually did get done. That's my best narration voice. Everything in the front half is done. So from the front master cylinder here on the left to the front brake lines, those go to each end. Now we just have the rear and the clutch to do. They both exit right here on this side, right there. But I want somewhere to pin them up to go all the way to the back. So I'm gonna find some rubber hose and design something in Fusion 360 that I can use to clamp these lines up so that they're not just like, you know, everywhere. We're gonna weld some of these bad boys on the inside. And 1 hour later, we've got a bunch of brake line holders, and this is how they were designed to work. This is our brake line. This obviously isn't going to fit in there very good, but I designed it so if we cut a piece of hose roughly the size of the piece, split this hose down the middle, this should be able to just slip over the brake line in place, and then you put the other one on the other side, and then just bolt this piece up to our little tab that we just made. Convenient. Now, I really hate that I have to do this, but we add this little trigger to our torch here. This is like an on-off switch. So if you set your welder to 100 amps, you're gonna get 100 amps the whole time. There's no adjustability in it. Whereas the pedal, it has a potentiometer in it. So if you want 50 amps, you just do like 50% pedal, and you want 100 amps, do 100% pedal. So a little less consistency with this thing because you can't control the heat, but it's gonna work for what we need. I hope. I didn't test it yet. You can still get a decent weld out of it. It's just not what I'm used to. That was a hard spot to weld also. We've got 3 of them in place. The brake lines come from all the way up there, run through our little thingamajigs. Right there, right there, right there. And it just kind of collects all the brake lines and keep them off everything. Now, I won't be using like that part of the chassis anyways. When you put the seat in there, these are actually tucked in behind the seat here. And then this area right here is actually like where the bending your knee is, so your legs aren't down there, and then your heels are just down by the pedals over here. Good to go. Just gotta get them to the back now. My favorite helper.
Is it me?
It's a witch.
It's me.
It's you. All of our brake lines are done, all the way to the back. The back ones I kind of just tucked up with washers. Clamp, once the body work is gonna go on this thing, you won't see it anyways. And then I'm gonna build a little guard right here, protect those lines from the chain, in case the chain explodes, but not right now. We're gonna bleed the brakes. Got my little fancy brake bleeder right there.
Me!
So we're gonna start by filling the reservoirs. So, front brakes. Fancy Pants assistant hops in. It's leaking. This isn't tight. And that one's not tight either. Get us a little bleed and brake montage on the go. Turns out all our 2 PSI valves right here are leaking. Even though I tightened them up, they're still leaking. So they've all got to come apart, unfortunately. This is how the valves came, you know, from Amazon with this red coating on it. And they were already assembled. I thought that was gonna be enough. I don't think it is. I'm gonna Teflon these, put them back together, see what happens. After what I would consider, you know, not a good time, I can try and bleed the brakes by myself in the front by myself. My assistant is gone. She had things to do. I frigged around and found out. It appears the Teflon tape did the trick. Wait for my assistant now and then do the rear brakes. It's gonna be weird having brakes before, you know, test driving it. That's not like me. That's not even close to me. I guess my dog is in here now too. Hi, dog. Okay. While I wait for my assistant, I've been thinking about this shifter. It's one thing that I didn't really quite know how to do. I thought I could probably use like a transmission cable, but it's slightly too long. And then they don't come in 4-foot sections, they only come in 3-foot sections. And I'm not ordering a custom cable. I also thought about running, you know, just a bar the whole length that would be on a lever. But I've been thinking, why don't I try and do something that would put me a little bit out of my comfort zone, but in my mind, it kind of makes sense that it would work. So on our race cars, we use CO2, compressed CO2, to shift the car. All it does is open a MAC valve, and the MAC valve allows air to go to the solenoid, and the solenoid bumps the gear shifter one place forward. Why don't we use that same concept and use something like this? This is a universal air ram. It has one side here and one side here. I assume if you put air on this side, it's going to push the piston this way, and if you push air on this side, it's gonna push the piston that way. And then I found this Heim joint on the end and I tapped it for the thread that are on here. I'm just thinking out loud here, but I can use something like this, 2 MAC valves and 2 micro switches, one on each paddle on the shifter, build some custom paddles. It won't blip the engine in the fact that it won't ignition cut the engine because it's not gonna be integrated into the engine, and I don't wanna buy an aftermarket ECU for the engine. So you're still gonna have to lift off the throttle, but you should be able to lift off the throttle, press the clutch if you want to, and then just pull the trigger, activate the micro switch, it'll activate the boost solenoid, and it'll push the ram to change the gear forward. Potentially is gonna work. I don't know, let me try it. There's my assistant back.
I thought you were saying sister. I was like, what? But you said assistant.
The stepsister.
Whoa.
All right, so I'm only gonna give myself a day to try this out to see if it works or not. I have an idea of putting this either below this or above this. Our heavy duty Heim joint is actually like an 8mm hole. And the holes on this are like 6mm. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take like an 8mm bolt, I'm gonna cut it off, and then this part right here, I'm actually gonna put a tap down it, or a die, sorry, like a tap and die kit. I'm gonna die that to be the same thread as this, and then this will work for this piece and be able to screw into our other piece still. There we go. Frickin' M8 bolt with M6 threads. Middle class fancy. We should be able to thread this piece right into there now. Dang, I love this thing. All right, here's our little tab right here. We're just gonna tack weld that in place, maybe a little bit of weld. This is more just to prove a theory instead of being a final installation. I still wanna find a better position for it than this, and it's probably better to have it on something that pivots off the end bolt here in place. So we're just gonna tack weld that in place, set up some MAC valves, see what happens. All right, here's our little poverty setup. It's just gonna go to our air compressor for now. And then I just use like regular fittings and lines and stuff. Just temporary. This is not how it's gonna be. But you can see that when we activate this MAC valve, it's going to pressurize this side of the tube, which should push the ram that way, which should move the gear lever that way. And then same thing for this one, should push it that way. Is it gonna work? I have no idea, but there's only one way to figure it out, and that's just to test it. Temporary battery here, we're going to hook up our air line. There is gonna be some air leaks for sure. I didn't put Teflon tape on anything. And we're running about 50 PSI base pressure. So we're gonna try and get the ram to go that way first. All right, so 50 PSI doesn't do anything. Okay, this is 60 PSI. I don't know why it went to 0, but it did. And obviously if you hold the MAC valve, it's just gonna stay stuck open like that. I just didn't wanna like have too much PSI on it, and then it like hit this and like snap something off. So working our way up to it. All right, this is about 100. And this is normally where I would set my bottle at, so. You can see the cylinder tips up a little bit. So use this as a reference to the cylinder right there where my finger is, and you can watch it go up and down. We have two options. One, we can add a small like little air compressor tank, an air compressor as a whole unit into the cart. It's gonna weigh a little bit, but you will never have to refill the bottle. The second thing is we can add a high compress bottle like this that we use in our race cars. So we use these for boost control and for shifting. They usually last a whole season, 2 seasons maybe in a race car, but I don't know if you're gonna be changing gears all the time. Up, 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 down, down, down. I don't know how long that bottle will last. To be fair, that bottle is probably going to be similar weight to an air compressor. And to be fair, oh yeah, our subscriber number, don't forget to subscribe. But to be fair, I think the onboard air system is probably similar in size, and it has its own built-in air compressor. So I don't know if that's the move, or if, I don't know if the electrical system in the bike is even gonna have enough power to charge that. I don't know, we'll figure it out. But that is a good sign. That is a good base, and now I can kind of design my steering wheel to have paddle shifters on it. I love the direction this is going. I designed another steering wheel. And I thought if we were gonna go ahead and put air shifting in this, we should probably put some paddle shifters on it to control the Mac valves to control our air shifter. So I completely redesigned the steering wheel, and this is the part that I'm super excited about, is that I'm actually getting pretty decent at Fusion 360. It's the fucking Catalina wine mixer. I had to put something on the front, but our steering wheel is now 2 pieces, and on the back you will notice there's a little micro switch down there. That's what's gonna control our air ram. Now, I custom built these, and I can add the STL files somewhere for everyone to download if you guys wanna use them. I do have to redesign this. This one is a 10% infill, and it was just a test to see if all my holes lined up, if all the spacing lined up, if everything was gonna work and be compatible. And that's why you do it, because I accounted for this area of our hub and not this area of the hub. And now the hub no longer fits in between our things, which are easy changes. What's unique about our steering wheel this time is that our steering wheel is actually, 2 pieces. Now this is where the design fun came in. I designed this piece right here, so it's recessed 1/8 of an inch. Our arc droid will cut 1/8" pieces of metal, and then I have the file so I can cut out a piece of metal to sandwich in between our 2 pieces of plate right here. The hub will bolt through the metal into the hub. The PLA or whatever material I end up using will just end up being a spacer and like a hand grip basically, because the steel core is gonna be actually what's doing all the work. I didn't recess these holes for our shifters, so I have to do that next time as well. And then our little micro switch right here actually has 2 little tunnels underneath it, and it comes out on this side over here and goes through the steering wheel. They will come out these holes right here, and then they will go to the middle hole where I'll put a bulkhead connector that comes out the back of the steering wheel, so we only have 1 cable coming out the back of the steering wheel. So that's where we're at right now on this. It's always nice to challenge yourself and one-up yourself. So if you guys are looking like, man, he didn't upload a video in like 3 or 4 weeks, it's because I've spent a lot of time and a lot of hours in Fusion 360 learning how to make my seat, and then once I made the seat, I could take those skills and make the steering wheel, and then take those skills and make the shifters. It's an ongoing theme of that, like, I'm getting a lot better at CAD to the point where I'm almost ready to make a body for this thing, and that has me excited for the future. This makes me happy. So somewhere between like doing this in Fusion 360 and then putting it there and then cleaning it up over there, it's just not the exact dimensions. Like it's a little bit out over here and then a little bit out over here too. And that's because the plasma starts like cutting at angles, and I don't know how to fix that. To be honest, it might just be something in my setup and I'm not sure, But something this critical and important for my steering wheel, I think I should just do like a send, cut, send thing. So I'm gonna send them off the file, see how much it is for them to cut it and send it to me. And I think that's the better option for now. It's still super cool that like I made this. Still amazed by this. Hey, it did it right at the layer that I wanted it to pause at. And now we can insert these little tiny nuts. And now it should print right over those. I definitely got a little bit excited because that's the first time I've ever done that, and that's super cool. So now I know that like if I wanted to change colors in a print, I could just like pause it and then swap the colors and then restart it. This 3D printing stuff is like, it's making me so excited, and I'm trying to be way more innovative than I have been before. So it's a good learning experience for me. Yeah, at least do. All right, here's version 2 of version 1. A couple of changes that we made just to get a good working prototype. They're both still 10% infill, so they're not the final copy, but this one, the new one, we did pause it at the layer as you guys seen, and we inserted nuts, and those came out well. They're inserted about 4 mil deep into this hole on each hole. And then our shifter holes, we actually moved those down slightly, so you can see that this right here was basically the center line of the wheel, and they're about 10 millimeters above that. With the new one, they're right about between the finger grips, and then they are actually moved out 10 mil this way more from the center so that our steering wheel hub can bolt on. You'll notice that the electrical connector on V1 was a circle. The electrical connector on V2 is actually the same size as the connector ring, so that can just go in there and it can be tightened from the backside. And then I slightly moved the holes for the electrical connector closer to the shifter paddle so that we could tuck the wires back a little easier. So version 2 looks like it's going to be the final prototype, and I can basically 100% infill this. And then our cover will still fit on both wheels. The only mistake I made on this cover was that the back holes were not big enough for our bolt heads. So this one's gonna stay with this one. I'm gonna print another one for V2 and then just keep both of these, and then when I print V3, I'll keep that one too. Let's test this out. Oh yes! Yes, that's the one, baby. What we're gonna do now is I'm just gonna run some wires from our micro switches back to our Mac valves just to make sure that everything works as intended. In other words, we're just gonna jimmy it up. Here's my jimmy it up. We've got power and ground put to our steering wheel. That goes to the Mac valves back here, and then we just have a battery on the side. So now we're gonna hook up our onboard air. I'm getting in the car, because if this works, I'm glad I went out of my way to do this. Ah! Like bros, look at that. I'm hoping to drive it next video. So see you guys in that one. Peace easy, get that beat.
Yeah, you like it, the way you like it, oh.